So we got
They
2 p.m. now. Sorry about that. Oh, let me send this to everybody. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us for our Tax Talk Live this month. We have Mr. Kelly Myers here. You guys all know him. You all love him. He's got over 30 years of experience in the IRS, so pretty good topic for him to be helping us out with. Just a little housekeeping. If you guys want to appear on camera, please accept the panelist invite I'm sending out. If you missed that, feel free to message me in the chat or something. I'm also allowing everyone to talk. We definitely encourage participation, just in between everyone talking and participating. So please feel free to join in. Don't be shy. Ask questions in the chat as well if that's what you feel comfortable with. With that, we're gonna get started. And let me stop sharing here. All right, I can see all of your faces. So
That's your problem.
it is. How you doing? Hi. Yeah. So Kelly, let's start off with over the course of your career, have you seen the IRS change, and how does that impact how they interact with practitioners? As well, what has been the most surprising shift you've seen in the IRS's processes or culture?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I mean, well, I mean, that's like, we could talk about Young Frankenstein and then you'd talk about Taylor Swift, and that's probably about the dynamic shift, right?
Are we back on that Young Frankenstein thing again? Oh God.
Yeah. But I mean, I think what it is, it's probably not as important of what has changed. We have to recognize change, and we know that as an industry, collectively, we're older on average. But I think recognize that the change happens and we adapt to it, right? We have to adjust. And we have to recognize that we need to change our processes because the IRS is changing theirs, and how do we operate more efficiently? And that's everything from remote to doing things digital to, we can't, for example, and I'll pick on, Jency, she's on the screen, but she was, 30 years ago, she would have gone down to the local office, knocked on the door and said, "Hey, John, can you help me out on this?" And they'd pull it up and do their thing. We don't get that anymore because there's less staffing. And so we have to think differently. The law has, I think the enforcement and such is similar. I wouldn't say the same by any means, but similar, but how we interface, right? Some people don't put a gas nozzle in their car anymore. They plug it into the wall, right? You're still getting transportation. You're still getting energy. It's just how do you execute that transportation?
Mm-hmm. Of course. So it's like the means have kind of shifted, but its overall purposes remain the same. But
yeah,
that's fair. Okay. And I guess a question
you could have shared these questions with me in advance.
That's
No,
true.
he's trying to blindside you. It's more fun that way.
Right? Okay. But we wanted to give you a little surprise. So, okay. I was just gonna ask then, I think this, I'm trying to keep it more general, but this is one everyone might be interested in. How do you balance patience with persistence when working with IRS representatives?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. And I think when you some of you have probably heard me say, my issue with the IRS is we're getting paid to navigate, right? How do you navigate the IRS? And to do that, if you think about them as an opponent, and they would not agree with that terminology because we're in partnership for tax administration. But if I understand how my opponent thinks, right? Like I had a meeting this morning with a client, and the husband and wife think we're doing some planning and strategic, right? He's concerned about one thing, and she's notably less concerned about his thing and more concerned about something with her, right? So they think differently. But if I'm dealing with the IRS, like in today's environment, if I'm working with an exam person and I understand that they're down 50% in their office with exam staff, what do I do? How does that change my thinking? Well, you think, well, I don't know. I'm still dealing with Rhonda, and Rhonda's still employed here. Why should it matter? Well, it matters because if Rhonda if there's 3 examiners in the office now and there were 6, there was 6 people worth of inventory of audits going on, or collection, however you want to look at it. There's a workload of 6 open cases for 6 people. Well, now you have half those number of people. So management saying, y'all got to close those cases and still deal with them. So now they have this internal pressure, right? Of my workload just doubled because somebody else quit. So how do you recognize that, and then understand that, how do you help them navigate out of their problem, right? Because they're jacked up, right? I mean, that's the reality. So if you have some kind of a relationship with them, and you understand that I need to help, their solution is trying to close the cases. So if you have a case that's like, why are you even here? Maybe it was a training case because it was a probationary employee that left. So now it's a training case, and they just pulled that more random to get through the exercise of how to go through audits, is the reason they have the training cases.
Mhm.
So now you have an experienced person trying to close out a training case, or maybe the manager's calling you and saying, hey, this case is transferred. It's going to be setting for a while, be patient, whatever. So how do I help them navigate out of that and go, I understand this is a training case. I understand the person's not there. What are the real issues here? Or do we need to close this out? How do we get to resolution faster? And I think also setting that tone of kind of, you feel their pain, right? But I can feel their pain and still leverage them, because I'm gonna take my thumb and stick it on that knife wound, right? And I'm gonna help them feel that pain a little better, to help them move right to the area I want to be. I mean, I have a case in point where we had an audit. I got engaged. It was a yacht lease operation, so they thought it was a hobby for 20, maybe been 21, but that return got audited. I took it to appeals, got it settled in appeals, a full concession. The next year came up for audit as well, for a training return. Well, I looked at the trainee and said, it's repetitive audit. And they went to their manager and came back and say, well, it really isn't, because, and they're right. I was stretching it a little bit, but I represent the client, so I'm going to pitch that. Then the employee gets fired because they're probationary. So I'm back to the manager going, let's have a discussion about this. Your real issue is this yacht, this doctor that has a yacht, and it's generating a loss, and y'all just lost it in appeals. Do we really want to go through this exercise? Well, they surveyed it after assignment. They closed it after the client had been contacted. They closed it out, and they have authority to do that. So if they have that authority, and they're jammed up, try to give them an off ramp, right? Try to go like, hey, how do we solve this, right? How do we we both have a problem. You have an inventory problem. We have a client under audit. So trying to understand some of that. I'm not fighting for the IRS. I'm fighting for the client, but I understand the position they're in. It's right. I mean, it's no different. It's no different than if you have somebody in a sports team, right? You have somebody playing volleyball, and you know that this person back here in the back corner is short and can't hit the ball. Where do you tell your team to hit the ball, right? Right back there to the short person, right? I mean, that's just playing the game right.
Yeah, of course. That makes a lot of sense. And I guess, this kind of plays into that a bit. But what do you feel like is the most effective ways to get like a good and timely response from the IRS? So that's like how to leverage and kind of try and make their life easier, like help them help you. But are there like specific channels and whatnot that you recommend prioritizing, and like especially in particular situations?
Like, it's a challenge, right? Obviously we have access to the PPS line, right? Practitioner Priority Service, right? So your phone line is gated with priority, but you can still end up on the phone. I was on the phone yesterday on hold for an hour and 10 minutes, right? Till somebody answered. I tell people, I said, if they give you the option of please call me back, that is I have that. I've done that. I don't know. Every time I get a chance to, I do it. And they say, what number do you want to call back? And they'll say, we'll call you back in 53 minutes. And sometime between 52 and 54, they are going to call you back. I mean, it's an efficiency element, right? And it just puts you in queue that's respected. Um, the challenge, I think, comes, well, so now when you get through, and many of us at least have experienced this, you can get a person that's just dumb as a rock, right? They're ignorant, right? For whatever reason, right? They either don't know or don't care or some combination thereof. Those are frustrating, right? Because then you get transferred and it's messy. Other times you land somebody that they're exercising their full authority and they understand what's going on. And then you're like, great, I have another case. Let's do another. It's like you want to hold on to them because they're in the business of solution. And I always try and make some kind of personal connection, and I have that advantage over many of the people, at least on this call. I've walked in their shoes, so I find myself, I don't know, more subconsciously than conscious, because you try and fill dead space. I'm inevitably going either using terminology that is kind of inside IRS terminology, and they know, oh, you used to be one of us. And a lot of times that takes down the guard sometimes, and they tend to interact better. So whether that's reputation or you participate in tax forums, you do other things that builds kind of this credibility or relationship with somebody you're talking to. But that's kind of in the remote, and I think it changes when you go to a field engagement, when you're representing for audit or collection in this face-to-face mode. And that changes for sometimes when you call and you get that person that doesn't know what they're doing, sometimes you have this magical disconnect, and it's called that red button on your phone, right? Hang up and dial them back, because sometimes you're just never going to get anywhere. If you're dealing face-to-face, well, let me pause there, and then I'll go to the kind of the face-to-face and if you had a follow-up or question. Or maybe somebody else had a question.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, can I add in? Yeah, I would say to Kelly's point, when I call PPS, rarely, if ever, will I call PPS with just one case on my desk. I'm always hopeful that I'm going to get that person who is going to be helpful, and is going to be able to resolve issues. And I'll always have 3 or 4 on my desk, so that if I get a good person, I can address all 3 or 4 at the same time. And if I get somebody who's not so helpful, I'll power my way through the first one, and they go, are there any other cases that I can help you with? No.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Anyone else have any questions or commentary? Oh, Miriam, go ahead, please.
Hi. So the other day I had to call PPS, and I did the call back. I thought, why not? Let them call me back. I'm not going to sit on hold for, 2 hours. Great. The person who called me back said, listen to everything that I presented and said, well, I don't know why that's that way. Something is wrong with that, but I'm going to have to research it. But I can't do it now because I'm on phone call duty. Never heard back. Client received a letter saying that I had agreed to what the IRS proposed, which I did not. Bit of a, but then eventually when I went online and got a transcript, she had done everything I asked.
Oh.
So that was strange. So I do like the callback feature so that you don't have to sit on hold, but I worry about that. Who is calling me back? I mean, are the people doing callbacks, they're restricted only to being on the phone and they can't do research? I didn't understand that part.
Yeah, I mean,
Kelly, I think it's the same, Miriam, I think it's the same people who are calling back, right? I mean, it's PPS employees that you're talking to no matter what. It's just there's probably a dedicated team of people who are on the call. Let's call it the callback team, versus the regular PPS employees. But I don't think they have any more or less authority than any other PPS employee.
And I would also suggest that their answer of, I need to get back with you because whatever, is a soft way to tap out and go, I need to go talk to my supervisor because I don't know what the heck you just asked me, right? So it's one of those things I think many of us exercise in real life. It's like, that's a really good question. Let me get back with you on that, right? And So it's as opposed to wait till your father gets home, right? But I think it's an element of, for them, a way to save face would be my guess. Is they're like, let me research that and get back, because that's an acceptable answer to you, right? You're like, oh, they're being helpful, they're being responsive, I'm happy with that. And the reality is they're 3 months into the job and they're like, wow, didn't have that question before, I don't know what to do with it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's super fair.
Here we go. Here we go.
Yep. Bill, what's up?
I have two issues right now with the IRS that I've really actually have not ever come across before, and I want to get other people's opinions on this. So one is, I have a client who has filed their taxes for past years. They were late, everything was late in filing. 2023, 2022. They did it in 2000. In April of 2025, and they're due to get refunds, and it was paper filed. When we call the IRS, still to this day, because I did it basically last week, the IRS has not processed it yet, but the person's telling me don't send duplicates.
Mm-mm.
And I'm like, okay, how can I find out like how far behind they are? Because it should be in the April work. And I mean, the person made it sound like, yeah, it's probably in the April batch, but the April batch doesn't necessarily immediately get processed, and it's got to go through 2 or 3 other people. And so it's like, there's no like quick 800 number fax service to send stuff to saying, hey, can you check on this?
So-
No, Bill, Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, I would make a couple comments. My first question that comes out of your question is, why weren't they e-filed?
The software at the
because-
time was blocking it, and I didn't know why, and didn't have the time to basically try to figure out
Okay.
why. But I agree.
Really, just to kind of, I guess my observation collectively is, if I have a choice, I'm going to send something electronic, or I'm going to fax it. The last thing I want to do is mail.
Right.
And regardless of, I'll put it to a secure box, I'll do a document upload tool, do something different, right, than the mail. Hopefully you've tracked when you submitted delinquent returns, especially, hopefully they're tracked, right, so that you've got return receipt, they were mailed. So the statute's protected, the refund statute. From a timeline, the problem is the timeline, like an amended return, which you're in the paper pipeline, right?
Right.
So that paper pipeline, if you look in the IRM, the Internal Revenue Manual, it's probably going to say you submit a paper return and we're going to have it processed within 12 to 16 weeks or something like that.
Correct. Yeah.
The problem is you look to amended returns, and that's kind of that time frame or a little bit more. In reality, you could probably pull the crew on this call, and you're going to find amended returns are probably running in the 10 to 12 months. I would be telling your client, don't think about it till Christmas. Okay, you want the horror story is, I have a client I'm working on, and worked on it a chunk yesterday and again this morning, filed a superseding return for 2021, filed in early October 2022 under extension. Superseded return, went in, IRS hiccup, sent in another one. That hiccup, they wanted another copy, sent in another. Now they have sent out a superseding return, the best we know right now. This is a 2021 year. They've sent it out to the area office for classification for consideration for audit. Well, my problem is you can't audit a superseding return that hasn't been processed. They're treating it like a claim as opposed to an original return.
Right.
And so we are, 2.5 years later with a $200,000 plus refund that the IRS it's been all over the place. It's an extreme, but it's an illustration of the condition inside the IRS, which has gotten worse in the last, several months, 6 months, whatever. So, but in terms of those delinquents, it's going to be, I mean, if I do a delinquent or amended for somebody, I tell them if it's going to be paper filed, it's going to be, I tell them a year, maybe a little bit less, but don't get your expectations up.
Because these delinquents,
Yeah, Bill, what I'm finding also, in addition to what Kelly has said, is that the answer to that question, sadly, is also a function of whose desk did that amended paper, or that original amended, it doesn't really matter, paper return end up on, because if it ended up on the desk of somebody who was a probationary employee and then they end up getting terminated, and then the file that's on their desk ends up going to somebody else's desk, versus, it goes to an employee who's been there for a long time and they know what they're doing and they get through it right away. I've had a couple in the last this is even before the fiascos of the last 6 months. I've had situations where I've had to submit an original return on paper, sadly, all right, and then an amended return on paper. And the amended return, we get correspondence that says, "Why are you amending the return? We haven't even processed the original return yet." So they actually got to the amended return before they got to the original return.
Yeah.
There's no way to really predict. I've had submitted amended returns on paper, all right, that I've gotten responses on in 2 months. And then I've had others that have been sitting a year and a half. There's just no consistency and no rhyme or reason to it at all. Which service center is it going to? Which employee's desk is it ending up on? How backlogged are they? Do they have a 25% cut in that service center, or did that service center get cut 35%? And somebody else, another service center, only got cut 15%. And there's your 25% average. All of those things are going to affect it.
Right. The one of the other ones that I'm dealing with, there was a tax practitioner who filed the taxes, and he coded the refund, an $8,000 refund for the client, to be moved to 2025 credit rather than sending it out. And so, I looked up basically the rules, and we've tried to call the IRS 3 times and been long hold times, hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours. I mean, it's just kind of amazing. They do it. By the way, I don't like the callback service simply because when they call back, they literally dial like 4 times and that's it. They dial, it's like 4 rings and that's it. And then, I get a voicemail that says call back to the IRS. And so to me, it's like, if you can't, reach me, I wish there was a way of prioritizing me to get back into a queue, because if you miss that, you're starting all over again. And I've seen where the rings are like, 1 or 2 rings and that's it. It's like, give me a chance to answer the phone. But the big thing I have is, okay, how do you get that return coded so that, it was e-filed, so instead of waiting for 2025, they can get it in 2024, normal refund. We've written a letter asking for it, but there's no way to expedite those types of letters.
You're not going to, the IRM answer is you're not going to get it.
You can't, Bill. It's statutory.
Okay, well, because there was supposed to be some kind of exemption to that, because you can say it would cause a hardship, and the $8,000 refund, and it was a mistake of their practitioner who did it, and so that's what basically we indicated in the letter.
So the workaround for that, Bill, because you can write a hardship letter today and they'll maybe talk to you in January about it.
Okay.
File early, even though you don't have as much estimated data as you have. And I don't know if I'd do it for $8,000. It just kind of depends on the client, I guess.
Right.
But I've seen them for bigger numbers. Is file early with estimates, even though you don't have all the K1s and all this and that, and do it electronically. You're going to get the refund quick, right? Mid-February, and then file an extension, and then file a superseding return when you have all the data and it's right, and you plus or minus the right number. But yeah, like I say, it's I don't know who said it, but statutory. You're not going to get they're not going to move it from absent some kind of hardship. They're not going to move it over.
Yeah, because I mean, I think what was the idea was, well, once they see that there is no 2024 taxes due, and you have this, because besides this 8,000, she also sent $20,000 in for estimated taxes for 2025. So I mean, and that the guy's calculations were just totally off.
So let me ask this: Do they have withholding?
Not really. That's the thing. Like it was associated with a business. So, and the business is now actually closed down. So they really, there's no other withholding that they're doing right now. And I'm like, you shut that off, because you got a huge credit coming back to you. But it was just interesting as far as that there's no way to reach anybody to fix that. And you can't really she complained to the practitioner, and he's just like, well, I thought that's what you wanted. It's like, no, in fact, and when you looked at her, when she reviewed the return a week and a half earlier, it wasn't there. It was a normal refund. So it was his error. Somebody hit a button by accident, to credit it for 2025. But so basically you're all thinking that, there's not much you can do about it. Just wait until 2025 and get the credit and include the credit in your estimated taxes.
Yep.
Unless you want to try to go through speeding it up by doing the partial
Yeah.
return. So, okay, I'm just amazed that there is actually no way around to fix that, because, they got a $28,000 credit right now with the IRS.
Well, as Kelly said, there is a way to fix that. And if we were in normal times, I don't even know when the last time we had that was.
Mhm.
But you can make hardship, you can go the hardship route. If we were having this conversation 6 years ago,
Mhm.
I refer to everything as BC and AC, before COVID and after COVID.
Mhm.
If you were having this conversation BC, yeah, you could have gone the hardship route. You probably could have gone to the advocate even, and you could have gotten that done, and you probably would have seen the refund in maybe 2 months or so. Now there's not a snowball's chance, and what. Right, of that
Okay.
happening. As Kelly said, it's going to be January, February, and by then you're going to have to file the return. You can file a return anyway and just get it. So
Yeah. Okay, all right. I was just seeing if there's anything else I can do, because I've got a copy of the letter, and I was like, there's got to be some place you can send this to for someone to even look at it.
well, you can send it in, but it's just going to sit on somebody's desk.
Yeah, I was
It's
just thinking
paper.
there's
The IRS does not want paper.
right. But if you send it electronically, they can look at it for a quick moment and then act on it. But instead it goes through a whole mail queue there. But oh well.
Yeah, you and 30 million other people. That's
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah, understood. All right. Well, that was the two issues recently, but no,
That's fair.
it's been interesting as far as when I've called and did the callback service. And they give you a long voicemail, saying, this is the callback from the IRS. But it's a voicemail. I mean, they just immediately go, they're going there.
So let me ask this, Bill. Because I don't experience that, and maybe because I sit there with my phone knowing I'm going to get a call between 1:55 and 2 or whatever. But that's coming straight to my work cell number.
Yeah.
And is that you're doing the same thing? Okay, so
I'm doing the same thing. Yeah.
it's not being forwarded from another number or something like that would delay the ring. Okay.
No. So it's so, and again, I don't know how many rings they're getting on their end or whatever, but the and it's not always necessary to go on the voicemail. It's like the call pops up and disappears right away.
Wow.
But anyway, I just would say be prepared, for that you might have to do a call back. But it is funny, the CPAs in our office, how many of them, it's like, you get the IRS on speed dial, we're still going in the background. So, all right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Bill.
Hey, guys, in that case, is there any chance the congressional route works?
So, so let me address that, because that's kind of where I was headed, Claire, I think. And so let me kind of answer that globally. When dealing with the service, and this would be if you're dealing remote and not getting any traction, or you're dealing face to face. So how do you elevate up, right? Because you want to let the system you need, if you understand the system, or try, I'm not sure anybody understands it right now, but if you try and understand the system, and you have to understand that system has to work, right? So calling every week and saying, I'm not picking on Bill, but if I call every week and say, where's that original return? Why hasn't it been processed? The answer is click, just wait, right? But if you're not getting somewhere with an examiner or collection, or even through, PPS, and you're running into roadblocks and systemic problems, how do you elevate up, right? And if you're dealing with exam or collection, you elevate up by going, I want a managerial conference, I want a supervisory conference, and per the IRM, they have to provide that. And you have a set down or a video or phone conference with them and say, here's the barriers we have and how do we navigate forward. With, PPS and those engagements, you're right. Your one option is, go to Taxpayer Advocate. Well, and probably before Taxpayer Advocate, sometimes you can get traction with going through your, depends what your issue is, going through the stakeholder liaison. And sometimes they can give you a contact or a connection. stakeholder liaison's a great person to be able to reach out and say, you know, I'm especially in today's environment, like I have an exam going on, it's out in the middle of Texas. I don't know who the examiner is because they're gone, and I don't know where the manager is. Can you give me a phone call? You know, give me a contact, somebody I can communicate with. And the stakeholder liaison can help with that in SL. But going to the advocate, if you're hitting brick walls, and especially like you know, if a return's lost or you can't get a payment returned or something, then going to the advocate and they can bridge that gap sometimes back to whatever function has the control of the return or the refund or whatever the issue is. Recognize that, I know for us, I mean, if I put something into advocate, it's going to take probably 2 weeks before I get a call. So it's not an immediate solution. And the advocate staff are just like PPS. It depends on who you get. We have one local advocate caseworker, and she's great. I have another one. I don't know anything about her because she's had the case for about 4 months and she's yet to call me. So it's that's just frustration. Kind of the step past that is, and I don't, Claire said or not, you can go congressional. So you can reach out to your congressional office, and it can be a representative or senator. I go through our local representative office, and I've built a relationship with them. And keep in mind, because a lot of the work I do ends up being, you know, the client tries to fix it, right? And they couldn't fix it. And then they go to their practitioner and say, here, can you fix this? They can't, they fiddle around with it for 4 or 5 or 6 months. They can't fix it. And then they go, oh, we'll get Kelly to come in and help us. Well, y'all messed it all up for the last year, and now you want me to fix it immediately, right? But I have a relationship with the congressman office, and I call Tracy and I said, Tracy, here's what I've got going on. And they can provide leverage. Matter of fact, I had a call yesterday with one of them, and they said, do we want to set up a meeting at the executive level going over with you, you know, to facilitate this problem? And, you know, we're trying to work through it. But keep in mind that when you go, the advocate is helpful. They cannot adjust the account. All they can do is literally advocate. So they're going to talk to W&I, they're going to talk to accounts management, they're going to talk to SBSE, whomever, and on your behalf, and try and help the system along. When you go to a congressional, recognize that if you go down to the congressional office or call them, however you connect with them, and open a case, that case gets, let's call it numbered, right? So they track the case, and congressional reports go over to the commissioner's office, and they get filtered down to the appropriate unit. And those are reported on back up the chain periodically, like every 3 to 4 weeks, like I think 30 days is what I think the standard is. My point is it raises the attention meter greatly when you go congressional route. I've been on the receiving side of that as well, and it flows downhill and it lands on your desk, and it's like, we need to fix this. And it's like, because nobody wants to answer back to Congress, right? So just recognize that is not that congressional stop is, I've often referred to as kind of nuclear, right? That's kind of it should be your last effort. Because think about it, you don't want, every time you bump into a problem, you don't want to reach out to your congressman. They do not want, you're going to burn political capital. You don't want to do that, right? But when, like they asked me the other day, said, do we want to have a meeting with senior management to try and figure out this problem? And I told them, no. I said, I'm going to go do this and this. I'm going to reach out to a territory manager, some area management, and see if we can't get traction there to try and let the system work, right? But then there's other times you just have to go that route. So just don't wear out your welcome either at the congressman's level or, with advocate even, because you'll get a reputation. Are you coming to your local advocate with a problem? You're like, I've tried 6 different ways and I've been beating on this for a year, right? Claire's going like, been there, done that, right? And when you go in there with a real issue, human nature is going to give you respect, right? So that, just be careful of, I mean, just recognize those are there. And it's no different with an exam, right? If you're going through an examination, you're getting a back and forth with an examiner that's normal, fine. You don't want to come right out of the gate and say, I want a supervisory conference. Like, for what? We haven't talked about anything, right? So just navigating that is important.
Yeah, of course. Lillian, you've had your hand up for a while. Did you want to speak? No? Guess not. She also wrote a comment.
Unmuting, yes.
Oh,
Okay,
there you
here
go.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't see you, but we can hear you.
Oh, wait. I accidentally messed that up. Let me find Lillian again. There we go. Sorry. Here you go, Lillian. Sorry about that.
All right, we're okay?
Yep.
All right. I have an 87-year-old client I just got about 2 years ago, and she showed me a beautifully handwritten return she had prepared for 2021. I should have such gorgeous handwriting. Unfortunately, when she did it, she took some liberties as far as deductions, like a loan to her son, things like that. And I said, you can't do that. Excuse me, you cannot do that. So I figured a few things out, and I sent the revised return to Austin, Texas, and didn't really hear back from them. Now she got a letter from, oh no, I did hear back from them saying that everything is now 0. Okay, so now I got a letter from Holtzville, Long Island, she lives on Long Island, and now she said they want to seize her property. So I don't know what I should be doing, whether I should be sending a return receipt requested letter to Holtzville saying, hey guys, 0. You know, I don't know.
I want to see a transcript of the 2021 transcript.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's, I mean, and if you don't know, I mean, the transcript is kind of the record of information the IRS has on the taxpayer, right? And it's going to show when they filed, when they amended, penalties that were assessed, interest assessed, notices that were sent out. And without knowing the timeline, it's interesting, they send her a 0 and then they send her a bill, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have letters that crisscross in the mail, and even notices that'll get queued up. So keep in mind, your notices get printed by a contractor, and it's all computerized, right? So they'll take a batch of letters, send them to the contractor. They'll print them up and mail them out. So they're extracting that letter maybe 2 weeks ahead of the date on the letter itself.
Right. Yeah, the letter that said she owed 0 was dated September 1st. The letter that said she owed, X number of dollars is also dated September 1st. So I can understand her confusion.
Yeah, we're probably all confused.
Yeah.
But I would.
Are you 100% sure that both letters are for the same year? I would verify that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would burst. Yeah, I would look at that transcript, and she can pull that transcript, or you can get a power of attorney. She can pull it off her. Well, 87-year-old's not going to pull it herself.
No,
sorry.
she's not. She doesn't. No, she doesn't.
Yeah,
no.
She doesn't. Yeah. But if you have a power of attorney, then you could pull the transcript and see that, because you writing the letter, sending a letter back and saying, okay, folks, which letter am I going to go with here?
Yes.
You're going to be behind Bill, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that pipeline, right?
Yes.
It's going to go to that 16-acre campus in Holtzville, the Brookhaven Center, and it's just going to mess. So I would look at that transcript and go, okay, so now what can I start seeing what happened here, and see if I can figure out where this $5,000 bill is getting generated. Because maybe a CP 2000 type issue, unreported income, or it's the amended. So that $5,000 bill doesn't line up with what the amended return is.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill, you go ahead, and then I'm gonna read some of the comments.
Okay. Another weird situation that I have a client that that I'm dealing with before a client, and I've referred them actually to a tax attorney on this. But she, a citizen of the United States, but she lived and worked in England for a good number of years. She has a pension through England, and they've been regularly, and she is 80 years old, and she's been receiving the pension for like 15 years. England is now, right now, with some of their old pensioners, they're offering payouts. And so she's received an offer for about $25,000 payout, lump sum payout of the pension, and to stop receiving it. So in talking to her, actually talking to her kids, they have discovered she has never filed the UK pension on her 1040s.
Mhm.
And by treaty, it looks like it's required. That basically no tax withholding done at UK, and all the tax withholding is done, supposed to be done in the United States, and all the tax filing. So now the question before them is, okay, number one, correcting, whatever it is, 15 years of pension payments. And one of the big issues is, okay, if she takes the 23,000, okay, great, pay taxes on that. Would that cause a red flag in the IRS where they would see this big payout sum, and all of a sudden be looking back at records saying there's never been any pension disclosed?
Right.
Mhm.
So how much roughly is her annual pension that she failed to report?
About 12,000 a year.
And what's her AGI otherwise, roughly?
Her AGI otherwise is probably about another $20,000 or $30,000, because she also gets Social Security,
Okay.
and little IRA withdrawals, that kind of stuff. So she's not like a high net worth individual.
Okay. So first off, I mean, your normal statute of limitations 3 years, so that's one level of exposure, right? So you'd be required, I think, ethically to look to the client or the
Yeah.
kids and say, Mom should amend her prior 3-year returns that are open by statute and report, British income.
Right.
If her $12,000, and this, we can't do the computation online, but if the $12,000 exceeds 25% of her gross income,
Mhm.
that's a 25% omission, and that creates a 6-year statute.
Mm.
So, I would say bottom line for $12,000, kind of to your last question. So you'd have amending 6 years.
Yeah.
You'd probably be arguing with the IRS to take to accept the return past the 3 years, because they just won't know what to do with it.
They
Processing
won't even
wise,
take it. Yeah, they won't even take it. You'll actually get I've discovered, Kelly, that you can't yourself invoke the 25-year or the 25% omission, the 6-year. They'll kick it back every time.
yeah. So, but as far as exposure, I mean, you filing, they're probably not getting the information return. If they were getting an information item, that you would have already gotten a CP 2000 notice.
Right.
So your responsibility is like file the return correct for 2025, right?
Yeah.
Or 24 if they're on extension, and the family decides whether they want to amend or not. You have to,
Right.
you need to inform them, but ethically you aren't on the hook for it.
Right. Yeah. And technically, so she may have to file. We're recommending ethics wise as well as best protection to do 3-year filing of back taxes, and wait and see if the IRS asks for 6 years because of the 25% failure.
With that dollar limit, they're not going to ask, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, and again, I'm assuming there's a tax liability if she reports the 12.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and again, that would be whatever the open statutes are, which for right now would be 22, 23, 24.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that, I've already referred them to a tax attorney to basically see what that person recommended. But the
he's going to recommend billing them $5,000 and then tell you the same thing.
probably.
I mean, yeah,
and
tax attorney might even recommend the voluntary disclosure, and he might even, I mean, my concern would be, and I agree with Kelly on this, my concern would be because you're dealing with an older client, I wouldn't want any issues in settling the estate at all.
right.
I would probably lean towards, if the family's willing to amend anyway, I would probably do the 6 years and let the IRS reject the 3 years. They're going to send the rejection letter. It's beyond the 3-year statute. We can't take the return, but you've done the right thing. Hey, we gave you the return. You didn't process it. That's not my problem.
Right. Now,
Make-
what about issues with the, I mean, it's technically an account that's basically held internationally when it's a pension. So
I
the thing is, there
about
should,
the 114, she has a filing requirement.
no, she's never filed any of that. So
I mean,
The
if
money's
she's
the money's in the account in the UK.
it's not, it's a pension and it gets paid to her here in the States.
No.
That's,
I don't know.
that's the only reason you need a tax attorney.
if there's a disclosure issue there, if there's a failure to file the FinCEN.
Yeah,
Yeah, but if there's no account in the UK, I mean, it's definitely not. There's not going to be an FBAR filing requirement. because there's
is a
there's no
pension,
account.
is a pension considered an account there?
No,
Okay, so the account has to be, if the account is in the US, there's probably, because I don't think she would have an account over there. I think she was doing direct deposits to her accounts here, but I have no idea if she has some small thing over there. But it's I guess it's worth asking. But
Yeah, but if it's small enough, I mean, if the pension's only 12K a year, I guess that would exceed the $10,000 limit for the
Yeah.
pension. So if it does go into a UK account first and then come here, yeah, she'd probably be over
yeah,
the amount.
yeah, that's and I could see that occurring. So I'll have to find out. So okay, well that was helpful, and it's actually better than what I was expecting, because I wasn't thinking about a 3-year statute on it. I was really afraid they'd get her for fraud and say, you can try to go back 7 to 10.
they're not going to
So-
prosecute an 80-year-old lady.
Oh yeah, but they can certainly try to collect as much money as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, very good.
What's up, Gen C? Oh, can't hear you for some reason. Weird. Gen C, I think your mic is off or something.
We
I don't know.
can't hear you.
Yeah.
Nope.
No, not working. Oh, sorry about that, Gen C. We'll let you. We'll give you some time to figure that out. And in the meantime, Dana has a funny comment in terms of she said she just received an IRS letter dated August 29th, 2025, stating that they had received her correspondence from November 23rd, 2023, and required
That's about right.
an additional 90 days to review the information. This has been going on for almost 2 years, and no phone representative can offer any updates. They simply say it appears that it is being processed.
Okay, so what's the problem?
Where's the question, right? Right?
Yeah,
I'm
and
sorry. I'm sorry,
Be
that's not
worse.
funny. It's not funny to the person that wrote the question, but it is to some of us.
Oh,
She just meant it as a just an informational thing that
Yeah.
just fun
Because we've
little.
all been there.
huh?
At least there's no balance due or something on it. It's just, give them more time, please.
Yeah, for sure. And Jennifer Hawes had asked, are tips and overtime above AGI calculation or after AGI? And Teresa's actually nice enough to answer that and said, the way she understands it is that it doesn't reduce AGI, that it will be deducted after the standard deduction or itemized deductions.
Mm.
But I'm not finding the specific instructions, she said. So
Yeah,
thank you, Teresa.
I think that tips, as I understand them, they're going to be the tips and the old person deduction are both below AGI. So it's going to be shoved in there with, QBI and itemized deductions and all that adjustments to AGI.
I think that's what Mark said during his presentation also. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I did see there was a notice out yesterday or today on what the tip industry consists of. And it's like 60 different jobs. There's a notice or a Rev Proc 2025-28 or something like that. I'm sure there's more to come, but got a whole laundry list of professions. So
I'm
that'll be
assuming CPA is not on that list.
SSTBs were apparently. I didn't go back and read it, but I think SSTBs were specifically
Oh, yes,
excluded.
they were, yeah.
The whole block of that
Okay,
definition.
so enrolled agents, CPAs, tax preparers, etc.
Yeah, you can't tip your doctor and have him get a deduction for it.
Good Good try. Why
For
not?
reference for that, Kelly?
2005-28. Let me see if I can find it real.
Because I'm not
2025.
finding it on the IRS website.
25. They're ahead of schedule. I'd read it'd be October. Hey, somebody's on the ball.
Mhm.
It was probably a
thought
mistake.
that was. I mean, you ask, I have a problem with I make these statements and I'm going like, so where did I see that? And where did I, yeah, because this is,
That's
I mean,
the R&E.
was that the R&D? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
But then there was, somebody posted up, I'll have to look, because somebody posted up a list and I'm not sure. Okay, we'll look and see if we can spot it.
Yeah, we can come back to that and let everyone know about it. Yeah. Marie, did you want to comment, or I could just read out the comment that we have over here from you? No? She said, oh, well, you were saying that you had a situation similar to Lillian, and that there were two departments for some reason handling the same issue, and then it took about 3 letters for the second department to eventually get their records straight and issue a $0 letter. And that you also agreed with Kelly's recommendation to obtain a power of attorney and transcripts so that you can ensure that your client truly won't have her assets levied by the IRS. So, good stuff. Yeah, Jennifer also asked, how will the self-employed taxpayer get the tip deduction if they don't receive a W-2 or 1099?
I mean, it's going to be a self-reporting as far as
Yeah.
I could think. I mean, and keep in mind, there's checks and balances because it's limited to a certain amount. It's going to be limited to certain industries, and it's going to get phased out after a certain level. So, to a degree, it's going to be self-governing.
Well, it's going to have to. I mean, it's going to have to be because the IRS, at least on the W-2 side of it, I don't know what's happening on the 1099 side. I don't imagine it's going to be any different. But on the W-2 side, the only amendment they made to the W-2 form was to put a code in there for what industry, which is probably in that revenue procedure that we can't find. Right? You know, what industry the client is in, and
Right.
that's it. There's no additional reporting. The IRS isn't going to have a clue.
Do you think that employees are going to go back to employers now and say, I need you to give me something proving what was tips from my W-2? And then the burden is going to go back to the employers and then back to us as tax preparers, anybody who does any kind of payroll reporting, and they're going to come back and say, can't you report something?
Yeah.
Well,
I think
yeah,
Kelly.
go ahead,
I said the ultimate issue you're going to run into is going to be that the employee is supposed to be reporting all of their tips anyway, all right, to the employer as a purely theoretical matter, all right. But the employer is not going to be set up, especially retroactively, to determine which tips included the automatic 18% that we add to your bill because there were more than 6 people in your party. So we're going to have absolutely no way of knowing how much of those tips are actually eligible for the exclusion. We're going to run into the same issue on the overtime, right? There are lots of employers out there who pay, if you stay 9 hours today, I'm going to give you an hour of overtime. All right. That doesn't qualify because it's not required by labor law. But there's no way they're going to be able to carve that out. I could ask for the last pay stub of the year, and I know how much overtime my wife worked. Like my wife works for Costco. That's the situation there. You work over 8 hours, you get overtime pay. All right. It's going to show on her pay stub, but it doesn't qualify the exclusion. But I don't know that. I mean, I do, but all right. But how are we supposed to figure that out if the only thing we're going to get from the employee is going to be the pay stub? We're not going to have a clue.
But I think Miriam's right though. What the service has done, or Congress, is the burden is on the employer. The employee can't do anything about it. If it's not if it's not told to you, then it didn't happen. I mean, and what my concern is, and I don't, you have a certain population out there that's going like, great, I don't have to pay any tax. Well, you still have to pay you still have to pay Social Security tax. And how many of those, what I'll be curious is how many of those individuals that are in a tipped industry that receive tips are paying tax anyway on those tips, right? Because if it's, now granted, there's some folks that are in tipped industries that make real good money. But if you're out there, you're in a tipped industry and you're making 30,000 a year and you have 2 kids, you're not paying any tax anyway. So they gave away something without giving anything.
Yeah, it
So
might be
there's
an
gonna be certain,
yeah, it might be an education opportunity as well. I mean, from my money anyway, I think about a situation where you have the people that you're talking about, right? You know what? You'd be better off reporting those additional tips. Yes, you're going to have to pay the Social Security tax. It's not necessarily going to change your refund if if your income is within certain levels. And guess what? You know what? Your AGI was too low before. You had no taxable income. There would have been no benefit to putting money in an IRA. Well, now there is. So now you can take some of that money that you weren't telling the IRS about anyway, and put it
Right.
into an IRA, and you're building your Social Security benefit as well.
Right.
A lot of those people, when they get ready to retire, their Social Security is bupkis because they haven't been reporting. So it's an education opportunity there also.
And I do payroll for couple of restaurants and stuff, and we pay, it's paycheck tips, and it gets added to their taxable income per paycheck.
Mhm.
I don't know if I was on there or not, but
So my question, Cindy, is when you're doing those payrolls and Hi and I come in to eat lunch, and we eat lunch and we leave a tip, that's a voluntary tip. But we get our families together at dinner and we go to eat dinner, and there's 8 of us, and I get an automatic 20% gratuity, which is not voluntary. What are you doing with that?
exactly. Right.
I mean, that's a little bit of a rhetorical question. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I know.
That's
Yeah.
that I think
I've been like,
that's
okay.
where the rubber meets the road,
Exactly.
right? And how do you explain that to the employee that, oh, by the way, you work in a nice restaurant and 80% of the tips you get are not, quote, voluntary, so therefore don't qualify for exclusion. But and then how does the busboy know whether his tip share was part of voluntary or involuntary tip?
Exactly. Yeah. Nightmare City.
Yes.
Well, there's an open question about who gets that money on a mandatory tip regime. It may not even go to the staff.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we ate, matter of fact, we were down at the forum. We went out and
Yeah. You want to take
it was
everybody
kind of
out to Dick's?
well, we went out and got a dinner, we got ice cream, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, the lady at the ice cream, this 4 of us ordering an ice cream, float or milkshake or whatever, well below the threshold of the traditional 6. And she says, oh, by the way, there's a 20% add-on gratuity. And we're all looking at her going like, what? And she's like, yep. And I think part of the explanation, at least that I heard, is, well, culturally, because they're in a tourism industry down there, many of the foreigners don't understand. They don't practice tipping in their home country, so they come to the US and they don't tip so they just automatically add tips. Well,
a lot of restaurants, we were in Orlando, the Orlando Forum, and a lot of restaurants in Orlando do that automatically because of that problem. There's just tons of foreigners coming to Orlando.
So that's not a voluntary tip, but I heard one person say,
but do the employees actually see it, or are the restaurant owners sticking it in their pockets?
Well, I don't have a okay.
I've seen some restaurants where they turn it into a bonus pool, a kind of idea, and then they basically pay it out to people. And so again, it goes back to the issue of, it means there's going to be probably 2 payroll lines on stubs, one for voluntary tips, one for, non-voluntary self-declared tips. I mean, which I want to see anyone, I mean, it gets interesting how many people do not self-declare tips, as we already said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and again, it may become something that the payroll, ADP, paychecks, whoever, and Cindy and whoever else is doing payroll, is going to have to adjust their payroll processing, going forward, so that they can carve that stuff out. My question is going to be, does anybody have a clue? And the answer I already can tell you is no. What are you going to do with the tips that were received in January, February, March, April, May, June, and July this year?
Hmm.
There's no record. There's no way an employer is gonna go, yeah, I'll go back and carve all that stuff up to the IRS. Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Right. On the tip note, thank you, Maria. She posted a link there, which is the Treasury, and this must have been the foundation of what I had read, their source of it, talking about all the tipped occupations. And it's a long list. So it's available. All right.
I didn't realize I was muted, but yeah, we're pretty much at 3 o'clock. If you don't mind, Kelly, Richard read out a whole long thing, or we could deal with it after, but I could.
Say it again. The what? The list?
There's a long comment that was
Oh.
left as a question, and we could always maybe handle it after or something, or a different time. But if you want, I could just read it out and try and go over that last thing before we get up. Yeah, I'll read it out loud. So he says he has a situation from 2020. Dad and mom claimed college son on the original Efile tax return. Because of the recovery rebate credit and the AOC, it was determined that it was better for the son to claim himself on his own return. The amended return was e-filed for mom and dad and accepted by taking the son off as a dependent. The son then tried to e-file an original return, claiming himself after his parents' amended return had already been accepted. His original e-filed return was rejected, being coded that he had been claimed as a dependent on another return. Apparently, the IRS records had not caught up with his parents' amended return for taking him off as a dependent. So an original paper file was then paper return was filed for the son. Now the IRS has no record of any return being filed for the son.
They've never updated the database for amended returns.
Yeah.
He's going to have to file paper.
Or he's going to have to file paper, and he's going to file to. He's going to have to demonstrate that he timely filed the return, because right now, if it's 2020 return, the e-file reject will not. That's not a filed return, so that's not going to hold the statute. What they have to do is be able to document when the paper return was filed, and if they can't document the paper return was timely filed and rejected or not processed by the service, he's SOL.
Yeah, depending on how much money is there, I'm not going to disagree with Kelly, but I'm going to supplement what he said. All right, it's depending on how much money is involved. There is actually a valid argument. I've won this one before, where I had a return that rejected where the social security number and the name didn't match what was in Social Security's records, right? And I forgot the name of the case now. All right, and I'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll remember it. But there's a case that basically establishes what constitutes a valid return. If it contains all the information necessary to calculate tax, it shows income, it shows tax, it shows credits, it shows deductions, et cetera, et cetera. It's a valid tax return. If the IRS chooses not to accept it, that's on them.
Okay.
You
Be
know,
interesting to see that.
the fact that it doesn't match, the name and number doesn't match, that doesn't change the validity of the return. We had wages, we had Schedule C income, we had itemized deductions, we had dependents, we had properly calculated tax, et cetera, right? It wasn't Davis. What was the name of that case?
So we're going to look for that case to be posted on Tax Talk.
Yeah.
But the person who
we
wrote
cited
this,
that case. We cited that case when we went to appeals, to get the refund, and they said, yeah, it's a valid return. We chose not to accept it. That's on us.
Can I point out something here, that it's my understanding that if the parents were eligible to claim that child on their return, then whether or not they claimed the child, the son cannot claim cannot file and then claim education credits.
That was my thoughts as well. It's not an option if he's not qualified.
So they can't amend that return and have the son claim those education credits anyway.
wait, my understanding is that he's eligible to claim, they can not claim him and allow him to claim the education credits. It's just not refundable. So he
Right.
can only reduce his tax. He just can't get a refund beyond his tax. But I wonder if he's eligible for the recovery rebate credit. I think if he's the parent's dependent, then it may, we're too far removed from that for me to remember for sure. But I think only the parents are eligible for that recovery rebate credit, whatever that credit was back in 21. Yeah, the recovery rebate credit is in question and the AOC is only non-refundable. But the fact pattern here says that he sent an original return certified mail. So if he has the proof of the recertified mailing, that should also prove timely filing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Right.
So why
Going
was the
backwards to
son
just-
due a refund of $4,200 if the
Yeah,
AOC was not refundable?
Well,
it
if
might
he
include the
paid in
refundable part.
tax, so maybe I've had this where the parents are in too high of a AGI to qualify for education credit, but the tuition was 80 grand or something, and the kid worked all summer and made 20 grand and had 5,000 in withholding. So if he had tax on his income that was sufficient, it could reduce his tax to zero and give him a refund of his withholding. So it depends on the facts and circumstances.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I
Going
don't think
backwards for
UPS,
just-
I don't think UPS for priority receipt's going to do it though, Richard. I think you have to have a copy of a certified mailing. It has to be certified, or otherwise if I can find the case that he used, maybe that will work.
Well, I think UPS is an accepted, one of the accepted delivery services though.
But
It's
is
weird
a
because
USPS priority receipt sufficient, or does it have to be USPS certified?
If it has a tracking, I would think it would be acceptable.
yeah, I don't think it
Yeah.
has to be certified.
Yeah, it might.
Yeah,
They're
there
not
was,
gonna-
I actually saw a case a couple of years ago where an employee did, it's not an employee, somebody filed a tax return and they didn't send it certified. They sent it by, regular mail, but they actually brought the Postal Service employee in as a witness. And he says, I specifically remember this person coming in on April 15th and handing me the tax return. And the
Wow.
court said, yeah, then it's a filed return.
So I don't even want to think of A, the employee that remembers, and B, what kind of a person were they to be able to be remembered?
Yeah, I don't know what the facts of the case were, but I know, but it did happen.
Yeah,
There might
yeah.
have been some other extenuating circumstances, some other stuff going on. But the employee said, "No, I absolutely positively remember this guy coming in, and
Wow.
we took the return from them, and we put postage on it, and blah blah blah, and then it must have gotten lost, and it is what it is." So, going backwards for just a second, if I might, and before Kemi throws us out, the case that I was talking about is the Beard case, Beard versus Commissioner, 1984. Right, and there's 4 tests. Does it purport to be a return? Is it signed under penalty of perjury? Is there sufficient data to calculate tax? And it's an honest and reasonable effort to comply with the tax law. And if you meet those 4 tests, it qualifies as a tax return.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Kelly, for being our expert. Everyone for participating so much and giving all your input. But please feel free to join us next month. We'll be doing a nonprofit organizations and whatnot, and questions and discussion based around that. And y'all take care. We'll see you next time.
All right,
Thanks,
Kemi,
Kimmy.
take care.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Kelly,
Thank
take care.
you.
Everybody take care.